topic that goes,
boom.
It's that discussion that said one of the reasons for California independence is social justice.
For California independence?
It's like the history of social justice in America would be nice to say it was a piss poor record.
Well, like you can't decently use the two phrases in the same sentence.
Well, it's that argument that says, you have half the country that seems to hate Black Lives Matter, but are perfectly willing to go have a barbecue on MLK Day. It's like, Martin Luther King's been dead for 50 years, and we're still basically having to fight the same fights again. So we were discussing with this gentleman earlier, and he was talking about his organization, and I'm trying to explain to him, yes, we understand. Actually, we do understand.
Sign a petition for California independence.
In California, we have a much more of a chance of social justice than we're ever going to have in the United States. Because we're already fairly close to it. I mean, we're a lot further down that road. Not perfect. Not perfect. No one's talking unicorns and leprechauns and what have you here, but but we're much closer to it. I mean, no one in California is talking about taking away voter rights. And trying to explain this guy, it's like, no, basically we're on board with you. We're good with you. We get it. It's like America was founded on slavery. Slavery is enshrined in the Constitution. These things are problems. These things have always been problems.
Enshrined in the national anthem.
But any organization that is trying to fix America, especially here in California, if you're trying to fix America and you're ignoring the possible solution of California independence, you're only half in the game. I mean, our thing is that America.
Petition for California independence?
It may be that.
I don't. Oh, sorry.
No, by all means.
No, please, Hal.
So,
I'm just chatting. We're just collecting sound bites.
That's something that I've been thinking about because I've lived abroad for a long time and I've always seen California as a very independent,
yes.
very different cultural zone, and as far as we'd be the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world.
Immediately number 5, threatening number 4.
Yeah, so we'd be above Great Britain.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's
it would actually go at that point. It would go China, United States, Japan, Germany, California.
So awesome. So
it's good company actually. If you think about it.
I'm gonna stand facing this way.
We have a mask on.
No, go ahead. I'm just gonna stand facing this way.
Okay. Anyway.
Because I don't know where I stand on it yet, and that's why I wanted to talk to you guys.
By all means, that's why we're here.
Yeah. So it's a good idea in theory, but you think about what happened last time people tried to secede from the U.S., and then if you think about us trying to negotiate a trade deal with the U.S.
Right.
and conducting international diplomacy with the U.S., who's the biggest bullies that have ever existed since Great Britain.
Understood.
Yeah, and all that, and then obviously if we were going to secede, then Texas will be we don't want to pay federal taxes, and then they would secede, and then Washington and Oregon would probably go with us.
Probably.
And then it's the breakup of the Union, and then it's total civil war, and then all the people that join the Army would be joining the American Army, not the Californian Army. So I think it would turn into a slaughterfest.
Well,
the
first aspect of it is it's socially and so forth, we're quite a bit further down the road than we were in 1850.
Oh, for sure.
One of the things that people don't really look at is the Civil War. The reason the Civil War started wasn't necessarily because of secession. The reason the Civil War started was because the South fired on Fort Sumter. I mean, they had a lot of other issues We're not talking about it. Nowhere are we talking about ever about this being violent. If we can't do it without violence, then we won't do it.
If the
But
Cubans can work their way around Guantanamo
the logic-
Bay, we can work around
The model we're actually looking at is more like Scotland and Britain right now.
Okay.
That's
cool.
that,
So we're
and
an
the,
autonomous region,
and
not
the,
just a normal state.
well, to eventually become independent through negotiation and through votes.
Whoa, that's actually feasible.
That's why we're following.
And
the
that
same,
is very feasible, especially in the fact that, truthfully, half of America hates California in the first place. I mean, we would have more than enough support in the Senate to get there.
Yeah, but we give more to the feds.
California's been a donor state almost since its beginning.
They would not want us to leave because they want to keep taking our money.
But they don't like our policies.
Yeah, but we're so useful to like people who are on the other political spectrum of California because they can demonize us.
No, and honestly, we don't have to be part of them for them to demonize us. I mean, they demonize a lot of other places in the world without actually having them be part of the United States. But the logic here goes, where we're really far apart is sort of socioeconomic. Sociologically and economically, it's like California's very diverse. It's like no one in California is saying that, you know what would really help California is if we could just suppress the African American vote.
We want to do it this way, and we don't care.
No one in California would even think, hey, let's take rights away from the LGBTQ community. Let's do that. That'd be great. You know, because do you hear anybody in California really saying it's a great idea? Hello.
Hi.
Anyway, I know it's behind. Don't look behind curtain number 4. No,
Oh my God, it's another bear.
Anyway, it's one of those things where the conversation goes. We're talking about a peaceful disillusionment. They hate our policies. They don't like, and honestly, in the rest of the United States, they're under the total opinion that we are a complete mess. That we would nowhere near survive without federal dollars. They ignore the fact that before they give out federal dollars, they take our money, but they are totally under that impression that without federal dollars, California would collapse.
So if one could wave a magic wand and boopity boop, and then we're our own country, I think it would be fine. Granted, again, dealing with it would then be one of the longer borders in the world, like rivaling like China, Russia, Mongolia, and like Argentina, Chile with California's border with the U.S.
Yes.
And all that. And I just think functionally that would be really hard given that we have been a part of the U.S. And the transition to an autonomous state, would we then like remove ourselves from statehood and then be like an autonomous territory, kind of like Puerto Rico or something?
It's a possibility. It's like, but basically, there are lots of questions here, and no one's saying there's not. The idea goes, California can function as an independent nation. We have the economic base. We have all the elements of a country. But we are being held back. That's almost undoubtable. It's like this is one of those weird situations where everything on paper, mathematically speaking, if you add everything up, California should be long gone. I mean, it's like we get nothing back from the federal government that we can't do here, that we don't already pay for, that what have you. And if we were to, I mean, it's like you look right over here like at these ports. I can tell you now, if California charged the United States a 5% usage fee, which we cannot do now, it would generate $15 billion a quarter.
And then the U.S. would just invade us. Like that's what they do.
But why would they do that? Because they're going to get their money anyway. The only difference is that Bubba in Arkansas, when he goes to buy his flat screen TV at Walmart, is going to pay an additional $15.
Which I'm okay with, but the constituents of the senators and Congress people in like throughout the U.S., they would totally not want that to happen. They wouldn't want to support it.
Actually, the people who most don't want it to happen, the people who want it most not to happen, is basically California's own elected legislators in the federal government.
Yeah, out of the job.
Yeah. Nancy Pelosi hates this idea. Now, I don't have to ask her, but Nancy Pelosi hates this idea.
Well, that would create a much bigger branch of Californian government that would then deal with Californian autonomous affairs and like negotiating with
the trick
US
is,
and everything.
but on top of that, it's like there's a logic that says we're already dealing with that. We're just terribly underfunded at it. We're just terribly underfunded. A lot of the conversation goes, it's like I said, on paper, economically speaking, socially speaking, position in the world, environmentally speaking, on any of those major topics, California is already a country. It is now, and it is now and has been for a long time.
Ever heard of the Paris Climate Change Accords?
Well,
You may have heard that the U.S. pulled out. California didn't pull out. We're still in.
especially when you look at the idea that we spend, we give them for every dollar we give them, they give us like 68 cents back. And when you talk about like federal land usage, they give us nothing. They own 50% of California, so they make money off of that, and nobody can even begin to tally how much money they actually take out in business taxes. It's a $6 trillion. It's a $6 trillion a year economy that doesn't benefit the people it represents.
Yeah.
And that's so there.
I totally agree. Like, I'm on the same page that it would absolutely benefit Californians, probably.
Yes.
To have it like economically, socially, all that. But it just seems like how we go about making it happen. That's the gap there.
You're right.
We were talking about
I
That's why
totally agree.
tell us how to do it.
Yes.
That brings us yeah.
You tell us the
You've just you've segued me into this. What we've got here. This does not make us independent. This puts a ballot initiative on the 2024 ballot in California, if we get the signatures, to have the state create a commission to basically look at the risk reward of possible independence. This does not create independence. Signing this doesn't. You don't get to put your gray hat on. Your gray hat on. You're not an automatic rebel here.
Yeah.
What it does is we're just looking right now to
rally up some interest and look into how it
and
done.
yeah, how can it be done, and how can it be done peacefully, and how can it be done to the benefit of all?
Wow.
And if we, I know that's such a weird concept.
So in this, so you're looking for like a 20, 10, 15, 20 year solution.
Well, we're talking about. We tend to look at things like, how long did it take for marijuana legalization? How long did it take for LGBTQ marriage? These things take time, and they need to be studied before they happen. If we don't, it's like now maybe they'll launch the study, and it's like they're going to come back and tell everybody, tell all of us that we're completely wrong.
Yeah.
And that's.
Sign a petition.
But if we don't get it out there in front of people to look at, then we can never figure out where we're at.
I love that. Yeah.
So that's where this is at. This is not a. It's like and it's right there on the table. Feel free to read it. It's like it's also on the website, so you can go find it and read it there if you want. But honestly, all we're doing is it's, and of course, we have 2 years for legal challenges.
Yep.
We're talking about 2 years. Talking about 2 years for legal challenges. 4 years before it hits the ballot. That's what it's about. We're looking to give everybody a choice. Now now in independent California,
And then they voted to stay. That was it. And the same thing
But before they voted to stay, they did the same kind of study we're recommending, and it's not set in stone. They're looking to try another shot at independence because they want to stay in the EU. Okay, the English don't at this point, but they want to stay in the EU, and they got outvoted. Of course they did.
Yeah.
So
It says, well, if we pull out of the UK, we can go back into the EU if that's what we want to do.
anyway, yeah, this is us. This is basically. Would you like another sheet? Oh, by all means. This is us. I know this is going to sound strange in modern politics, but we're actually putting forward to give people a choice and a chance to look, not trying to tell everybody how it's going to be.
Well, then how are autocratic rulers going to dictate what we do?
Right? I know. Well, it's
I'm with you.
terrible. It's terrible. I
it's
know.
better for us.
I mean, we might actually have to, you know, that tax money that we put in might actually go to schools
Ew.
or fix roads and
Mate, you
bridges.
can't have an educated voter base. They're gonna do all this terrible
You
stuff to
know.
benefit themselves instead of billionaires. What the hell?
Maybe we could fund the occasional civic light opera or something with
That
this.
would be horrific, dude.
You know,
Guns and bombs, baby.
Right, yeah,
Gotta eat.
Well, I mean, and I tell everybody right off the top, it's like, go to the website. It's like, feel free to look around. But it's like, one thing about an independent California that I can say nobody, as far as I know, in California is looking to turn California into a global empire.
I mean,
Maybe we can just, I don't know. Maybe we can just buy. Maybe we can just buy and sell stuff.
Right, we'll
And-
settle for the cinema and music industry.
And have and have jobs.
yeah.
And have jobs and have jobs and culture and maybe we don't have to kill each other, or maybe we don't have to be obnoxious and hurt,
Yeah.
maybe we could be I don't know, maybe we could get along with America and they could be a trading partner
Yeah.
Like Canada, which has about as many people as we do.
and half the economy or a quarter of the economy, a third of the economy. Yeah. Canada's an independent nation with health care, and they have a quarter of our economy.
Yeah.
So it's like, why can't we have health care? Oh, wait, because we have to spend $70 billion a year in California to go into the federal kitty so that we can keep troops in Afghanistan?
Like to sign a petition, study California.
Does that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's
but
like,
they invaded America.
right.
It was the Afghani army.
Well, we have a joke. We have kind of a joke within the movement.
That
It's
was
like
66% Saudis. But,
as an experiment, you said you traveled.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. In your travels, in my travels, it's like I've noticed something that goes, if you're anywhere outside the United States and they ask you where you're from and you say I'm an American, they're like, they look at you kind of funny.
Oh, I hate you now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, really?
Giving you a
Take your
chance
money.
because you're. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I thought you might have been Canadian, but I was wrong.
Some people actually, in some travel advisories say that if you're asked where you're from, tell them you're Canadian.
Yeah. My favorite thing is like when I'm abroad, because everyone like hates America and stuff, and I used to, when I was in my early 20s, I used to like have really long conversations with like Swedes and Dutch and
Yeah.
people from South Africa and stuff, and like convince them that like the America that is represented by George W. like back when I was traveling and everything, like is not what it doesn't represent the like vast majority of people. And,
Right.
Like it's not representative, and there are different cultural zones. Like I wouldn't just call you because you're from Ukraine. I wouldn't call you Spanish because those are very different
Right.
parts of Europe. Granted, Ukraine is not
Definitely
EU.
don't call them Russian.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't call a Catalan or a Basque a Spaniard.
Depends. Like 35% in growing of Ukraine is like, oh yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they're like Russia pro. But like obviously California.
Sign a petition for California independence. Woo!
Yeah, like
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously California is very different from Vermont, very different from Texas,
Oh, yeah.
and Kansas, etc. So I always like would level with them and be like, okay, well, this is what California is. This is what I think. This is what people that I know think. This is what I've learned in university about whatever. And yeah, and they're like, oh, okay. And then I would get them to like understand a level of like, oh, okay, I guess there is like nuance to the U.S. It's not just America. Everything is Texas. Like, no, obviously.
No, they just want us to think it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It's
no, it's like,
interesting
but if you
brought up the
if you
case of Puerto Rico, and its
They're talking about
status,
statehood now.
and you know, the status between West Berlin and West Germany
Yeah.
was modeled on that. But up until the end of the Second World War, there were other territories that had the status of Puerto Rico, the same status. The Philippines, Alaska, Hawaii, Micronesia,
Yep.
all had the same status as Puerto Rico.
Yep.
Well, they went in different directions. Alaska and Hawaii became U.S. states. Philippines recovered their sovereignty. All these places had been invaded. And Puerto Rico remained Puerto Rico. So, you know, it's not set in stone that we continue to have the status that we have.
Yeah.
well, so, I mean, to finish the point, it goes.
No
It's like
state has ever
you
gotten statehood to
you
be
travel
autonomous,
internationally
but
and you
yeah,
tell them you're
again, I like the
Californian,
idea of talking
you get a
about it.
different response.
Sorry?
You travel internationally, you say you're an American, you get response A.
Yeah.
You say you're from California,
I always say California.
Yeah.
right? You say, because if you tell them you're from California, you get response B. Usually that includes like, oh, so you're from the good America.
Exactly.
And the second question is almost always, what is wrong with your country?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is wrong with your country? I mean,
yeah, well, I like telling people, like, that I'll say, oh, I'm from California, and they go, oh, you're an American? That's too bad. I liked you. And then I say, no, I'm from the Canadian part of California. And they go, oh, okay, that's a lot better. Cool.
right.
And,
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay. It's like, because all of a sudden it's like, my daughter ran into this. She did exchange student in Italy for a little while, for a semester. And it's like she'd walk in and when she'd go into someplace and they'd hear her speak, they're like, "You're an American?" And she'd be like, "Yes." And it's like she was surprised at the level of sort of indifference or hostility she might get.
Yeah.
They were kind of like, okay, you know, they were like, "Oh, one of you."
Yeah.
But then she walked into a place and said, "So where are you from?" And she's, "I'm from California. I'm from Los Angeles."
Yeah, you know,
Oh.
there were 5 Mexican states that separated peacefully from Mexico, the Central American states. 1821, Iturbide made himself emperor and annexed everything that was in Spanish North America and called it Mexico, right?
That was
Including
the
us, of course.
That was the Austrian guy that they tried to put on.
No. That's that was Maximilian. That was
Yeah.
Napoleon.
Mhm.
You know, when Napoleon
Yeah.
overthrew Spain.
He totally overwhelmed the Iberian
Yeah,
Peninsula.
and that was the original reason that we wanted independence from Spain, was because Spain itself was no longer independent. It was a dependency of Napoleon.
And it no longer had a navy to enforce shit along the coast of Mexico.
Yeah.
So they were just like, hey, yeah.
Yeah.
Where's
Yeah.
the-
But right at the founding of the Mexican state, like 1821, 1824, Mexico was this empire under a guy by the name of Agustin Iturbide, and then it was overthrown in favor of a federal republic. Okay, Los Estados Unidos Mexicanos, and indeed the reason we first flew an independence flag was because that was taken away from everybody in Mexico, not just us, everybody. But in 1824, the Central Americans didn't want to be part
I
of Mexico.
dropped my mask.
Okay, they didn't want to be part of Mexico, and so the Mexican government allowed them to leave. First as a federation of 5 states, and then they didn't want to be each other either, and so they broke up, right?
Yeah.
And then Chiapas didn't want to be wanted to be part of Mexico, so they seceded from Guatemala to do that. Okay, but yeah, it did happen peacefully in 1824. That 5 Mexican states left that. Okay, and of course you got examples like Czechoslovakia. Okay, they didn't have to go through what Yugoslavia had to go through.
Yeah.
You know, or Croatia. No, they said, well, We want a federal republic, the Slovaks said to the Czechs, and the Czechs said, yeah, which also works in Czech, by the way.
Hey.
Yes, you can go with the same situation, or you can be your own country. And says, well, let's be your own country. And now it's Czech or Slovakia. So it don't have to be like 1860. It really doesn't. Okay, there are alternatives. And we're encouraged by that. And the fact that Canada, that started out in a war with the U.S., is now one of its biggest partners. But they are independent, like we want to be. And there's many of us as them as there are of them, and we got a bigger economy than them. We got a bigger economy in Russia. We can do it. We can do it.
Yeah, interesting thing with Slovaks and Czechs, the divide. That's family Slovak. So kids our age who are like 20s, 30s, they understand each other. They speak the exact same language. But what's been happening is like kids who are like 5 to 8 years old now, they don't understand like Slovak and Czech. It used to be the exact same language, but now in just one generation, like the language is splintering and becoming so different to where Czechs can't really understand Slovaks, and even in conversation they're using different words.
Oh yeah, it's like Serb or Croatian,
Yeah,
Russian or Ukrainian,
exactly.
or Belarus,
Yeah,
Scots and Irish Gaelic.
yeah. It would be interesting to see. Like, imagine like 50-50 group and then we're separate. It would be interesting to see a Californian having a conversation with someone from Nevada. Like, we're so big that our English would stay really streamlined and normal because it's like, we all talk the same from like here to Colorado. But that would be so interesting to see like 3 generations.
What happens in the deep south or on the East Coast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was he brought up Czechoslovakia and Russia and so forth. It's like that's another consideration that does enter into the conversation eventually too. That goes, is the United States really long for this world? I mean, it's like with the divisions and so getting worse all the time, et cetera, and the economic. First off, America's $27 trillion in
Interested in
debt.
California independence? We are.
That is probably the single greatest factor why they wouldn't let us leave, because they need us A to help pay off their debt, and B, like our share of the debt, of which I'm sure there is some federally. Granted, we give them more money than they give us, but they're going to be like, no, you're going to help us pay off the debt.
Well, the second part of that argument goes.
If we escaped to the U.S. debt free, then bam.
No, the second part of that argument goes. I hear you on that. I hear you on your $27 trillion debt, but you're coming to me as me being a donor state for 30 years and asking me for more money.
That's cool, and that goes into the discussion.
That's part of the negotiation. That basically goes, you spent money badly against our will.
Yeah.
We didn't benefit from it. You know, it's kind of like.
I have a question.
Sure.
What happened to like the fast the train system that they were gonna build, like that they had a grant for but never used?
Well, they didn't. The money never showed up. Is really what happened. The federal funds that were needed to launch to really put the project on.
I thought it did show up. I thought they just didn't use it.
Oh,
No,
there's a section that's being built in the middle, which is the cheapest part, which is why it's being built there.
It's also
The Central Valley. I've seen it.
It's
But it's going to take a long time, and the parts that really matter are the last parts, the most expensive to build.
right. It's part of the problem here is everybody thought that we would fund this and it would magically poof and just drop. The problem with the high-speed rail line like that goes, first off, it takes a long time to build. No one ever built one quick anywhere. The second problem goes, first off, they started calling it a train to nowhere because, of course, they started building it in the Central Valley first.
Cheapest part.
Yeah, which is the least expensive part. It's going to take, with the way that funding comes from the federal government, it's going to take decades to finish this off.
So I do wear a mask.
It's in process. It would be, I mean, it's like, as far as an independent California goes, I mean, for California, this is very high on the list. I mean, linking Southern California and Northern California on an hour-long train ride There's no downside.
Yeah, that's
There's no downside there. But there's a place where that high-speed rail is being built with California dollars. Kentucky.
Thanks for explaining. Why did they do it? Like, why did they take
Oh,
the money
no.
and fund them to
That's with our
Because Cho, the lady who was under Trump, who was in charge of basically of U.S. Transit, the U.S. Transit Authority,
Okay.
is Mitch McConnell's wife
Okay.
from Kentucky.
Wow.
And they basically took the funding that was going to be for California's high-speed rail and funneled it into Kentucky transportation
What's her
projects.
name? I'll look into it.
What is her name?
Mr. McConnell's wife.
Yeah.
Just Google Mitch McConnell's wife. She's pretty darn famous.
I don't. Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay. I'll look
Ba-
into it.
she's already been under investigation.
Yeah.
She's already under investigation, but this is sort of endemic. It's like we have chapter members up in like north central California, up in the fire zone. They're still waiting for relief money from the fires.
Right.
The first batch of fires, not the latest one.
Yeah. The ones who
But
got destroyed, they're still waiting in Chico.
but
Yeah, it's
but we had a Category 1 storm hit the Gulf Coast, and FEMA rolled in there like gangbusters.
With our money.
With our money. Now, we pay for FEMA, but we don't get anything back.
yeah, it'd be interesting to like see what happens, like what we could do with like the train prison reform, like
Okay.
a lot of stuff. You know?
Let me hit you with the Cal exit question. It's like, I got two of them. I'll choose one first. The first one goes, name a single thing that the federal government does for Californians that we don't pay for.
Yeah.
They blow up random countries. That's nice.
They're very good at killing brown people halfway around the world.
Yeah.
But I mean, is there anything they do for California? Yeah. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Bullshit. What do you do for us? We give you trillions of dollars. Not millions, not billions, trillions. What do we get for
Our
that?
taxes too are like some of the highest. Like it's like
Because one of the reasons California taxes are so high is property values here are high.
well,
But the other one, it goes,
but if we separated, they wouldn't have to be that.
well, no, they wouldn't. And the reason goes like this.
We'll probably get there.
If you have to build roads, and if you have to build schools, and if you have to deal with infrastructure, sewage systems, etc., whatever social economic problems that are happening in your state, California is as big, California is as large and complex as any nation on earth.
Discuss whether the issue of
But if you're only receiving 68 cents on the dollar
Yeah.
back